Welcome to the Gaming Lodge, where we game till dawn. Nearly exactly 1 year after the initial announcement, we have received our first official look at the Until Dawn movie. And well, it's looking exactly like a lot of people expected it to be. A good horror movie that has absolutely nothing to do with Until Dawn.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Now, back in the beginning of August, I made an update video talking about rumored leaked plot details that actually now seem accurate with the first look we have been given. We already knew from the cast that we would be getting new characters rather than the same ones from the game, which already confirmed that the story would be entirely different, which already makes the decision to call the movie Until Dawn rather questionable. Because, you know, Until Dawn is all about its characters and the story. And now, if we at least don't go for the exact same characters, we could at least go for a similar plotted setting, right? Well, not entirely. See, instead of going to a snowy, ice-cold and hopeless lodge set in the middle of a Canadian mountains, we found ourselves in a random house in the middle of nowhere in the summer. Alone aesthetically, this movie looks nothing like Until Dawn. One of the most important aspects of the game experience and story is that cold and blue freezing winter set piece. The lodge being one of the many notable locations within these mountains, a location that is integral to the story and why things happen the way they do. Completely ditching that visual tone and look is already one of the biggest mistakes they could have made, because nothing about this movie looks like the game. It looks like just another horror movie. Don't get me wrong, I understand that we can 100% replicate the story into a film format. That always seemed impossible, but at least go ahead and make the movie look like the game. At least try to portray that same aesthetic and vibe that plays such an integral part in the game's greatness. I know they started filming this during August, which means they probably didn't have a lot of options to actually film in a snowy set piece, but then, you know, wait till you can. If you want to go for a different story, at least film the movie in a way where it looks and feels like the game. Because at first look we got is sadly anything but Until Dawn from a visual perspective, which is already one of the biggest mistakes could have made. And guess what? It gets worse. The rumored plot details that were mentioned in the leaks 5 months ago all seem to be true. A new story with little similarity to the game, centered on two siblings, Clover and Melody, which is actually mentioned within the first sentence of the synopsis. It's also about a time death loop, like in Happy Death Day. It's also a slasher with a masked killer running around, which likely makes the other points also true, including no Wendigos. I mean, where do I even start here? Okay, new characters and story, even though the movie is based and named after a video game with its own characters and story, yeah, making the movie look visually entirely different to how the game looked. Smart. Turning Until Dawn, a story where your characters dying actually meant they were dead, into some time loop thingy where they can't die. Very clever. And now, even more likely than before, not adding Wendigos, the trademark piece that made Until Dawn even more special. I don't even know what to say, man. I really don't. Just like I said in that older video, it's like making a Resident Evil movie without zombies. Stupid. Let's actually get into some of the things that were said.
As a huge fan of the Until Dawn game and how cinematic it was, I thought a lot about how we can continue the story without just giving the audience the same experience that they got when they were playing.
Okay, so this is like already a huge fundamental flaw. We are talking about continuing the story of the game without actually continuing it. Like, that idea actually sounds great. Instead of trying to make the Until Dawn game as a movie, take the Until Dawn game, decide on one canon ending, and then continue that story in movie format. Sounds good. Saying that Josh turned into a Wendigo with only Sam, Emily, and Mike survive, and you can go from there with new characters added, having to go back to the mines. I don't know, you get the point. But saying you want to continue the story of the game that is so heavily centered around these specific characters without these characters actually being part of your movie and story is just... What the hell are you talking about, man?
The movie has sort of the same tone and the same vibe, but it expands upon the universe.
Oh, the same tone and vibe, you say? Yeah, I don't know, man. Kind of hard to do that when it looks literally nothing like the game. But also, what universe are we talking about? Until Dawn is not a universe. It's one game and story. and that game and story are not based on a death loop.
One of the creative things the game did is that people make different choices and die in different ways. The movie has this mechanic where things start over and they get to try again.
Okay, so maybe I'm just misunderstanding this, but let me say it like this. He talks about one of the creative things that the game did is that people make different choices, and that leads to characters dying in different ways, which is essentially true. But the way he says that and follows it up sounds very wrong, because he follows it up by talking about the mechanic of the movie, where things start over and they get to try again. The way he said that, it feels to me like he's trying to portray like those two things are one and the same. Like that our choices deciding deaths is connected to that mechanic of the movie as if it was the same in the game, which is completely wrong. Yes, technically, one thing you can do is that if a death you get isn't something you want, you can go back to the start of the game, replay it all, and then make a different choice to avoid death, like what Markiplier did to avoid actually getting killed. But not only is that like something completely typical within the gaming world and nothing Until Dawn exclusive, it reminds me a lot of saving before the Pokemon League before getting my ass kicked by Cynthia, but it's also like mentioned not the same mechanic. That mechanic he's talking about is actually the exact opposite of what made the experience of Until Dawn so special and investing. Our choices can lead to the deaths of our characters. Our mistakes leads to them dying, which we won't be able to fix. These deaths are permanent and impactful. This entire Happy Death Day type idea of the characters dying over and over has absolutely nothing to do with Until Dawn and takes like completely away the tension that the game's premise provided. Until Dawn was such a stressful thriller because our choices mattered and death was permanent. The death loop is as far away from that as possible. So the movie looks nothing like the game, and the story is nothing like the game. In regards to the Wendigos, there is this sentence that talks about how each time they die, the threat is different and even more dwelling, so I don't know, maybe they actually give them to us at the end of the movie, who knows if they want to keep it a secret. Even though, again, the Wendigo weren't just a random monster added in for style points, they had a reason to exist and be an important part of the game and its story. Both because of the backstory with the mines and the location of the mountains, but also the fate of one of our own characters with Hannah. Like the Wendigos are the entire identity of the game, just like the story itself. So even if we get to see them, it won't have the same importance because they would lack the same story value. Unless the lost sister Melanie becomes a Wendigo as well, who knows.
Every time they come back to life, it's like they're in a new horror genre. To survive, they have to make it Until Dawn.
And this is honestly the reason why we are here right now. The entirety behind this movie's premise is that the people have to survive until dawn. With that tagline in mind, they probably thought, hey, there's an iconic horror game with that name. Let's say we make an Until Dawn movie, even though it won't be anything like the game. And this is the big problem here. From all that we've seen so far, it looks like it's gonna be a fun horror movie. Yeah, I loved Happy Death Day, and this could be entertaining. But instead of trying to make this its own standalone horror movie, we decided to slap the name of a beloved IP on top of it, despite the movie being nothing like said IP, slowly to create more buzz and make it more marketable. Because of that, a fun-looking movie has to meet expectations from fans that it simply can't satisfy because the movie was never made with satisfying those expectations in the first place. Like, I'm really not sure if the movie and script were finished first, then it was then decided to title it Until Dawn and act like it's based on the game, or if they wanted to make it Until Dawn movie, realized how difficult that is, and just went with something barely similar but used the IP anyways because, well, money. The movie was announced in January of 2024 and filming started in August, so there was honestly so much time to think and realize that what we're doing is not a good idea. On the one hand, I'm only talking about this movie right now because it's called Until Dawn. That's a fact. So yes, naming the movie after the game already created a lot of buzz and attention. But what is the point of said buzz and attention when it leads to people being unhappy when they realize that the Until Dawn movie is actually just another case of horror movie. It could be entirely its own thing, but slapped an IP on top of it because it's easier money. It's just unfortunate because the movie looks fun, and I'm sure the actors and people involved did a good job. But given the fact that they're so confidently trying to label the movie like it's based on the game, when literally the only thing similar are the title, logo, and inclusion of one of the actors, then it just feels weird and questionable. Again, I'm just not sure what Sony's strategy here is, because they should have known that the reception won't be great. Obviously they had something planned for a while, given the release of the remake 3 months ago and the teasing of a sequel for the game, but I really don't see how an Until Dawn movie that isn't an Until Dawn movie is supposed to help anything. Like, why do we do this? If you want to make an Until Dawn movie, just make an Until Dawn movie. And not an entirely different movie that might be fun, but would disappoint fans of the game that rightfully expected something else. What do you think? Are you still excited for the movie? Are you going to check out the trailer that drops soon? Let me know down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And see you back soon on the Gaming Lodge.